is Encore.
Cool.
The stories behind the songs.
Thank you.
Here's iHeartRadio's Miles Galloway.
Hello, how are you? I'm Miles Galloway, and this is the story of Adele's Rolling in the Deep. Yeah, before we get started, in case you didn't know, I am in fact British. And the biggest singer in Britain is Adele. And before you think I said her name wrong, that is how Adele pronounces Adele. Yeah, 2 years ago in a live Q&A with fans, she shocked the world, well, North America, by dropping this bombshell.
Where's she from? Enfield or something? Love that. She said my name
says
perfectly.
London. Yeah.
He came and asked me how I say my
Adele.
name, and I was like, Adele.
How was
and she
mine?
was like, hi, Adele.
They do it. Adele?
Adele.
Adele.
Okay. Great. All right, from London.
In case you didn't get that because the audio is a bit noisy, Adele pronounced her name properly again when she hosted Saturday Night Live and appeared in a skit spoofing The Bachelor.
Hi, I'm Adele Adkins. I'm 32. You may know me for being the singer Adele.
But as she admitted in that clip herself, people call her Adele. So that's what we're going to do today. Like Madonna, Bono, Prince, and Beyoncé before her, Adele is one of the great mononymous superstars of our time. But in case you didn't catch her saying it just there, her real name is Adele Adkins. She has one of the most recognizable voices ever, a reported 5-octave mezzo-soprano that it's almost impossible to mistake for anyone else. At the age of 34, she was one of the youngest people ever to have an EGOT. And by that, I mean she's won an Emmy, a Grammy, and an Oscar. And I will bet my house that she will win a Tony to complete the EGOT before she retires. Adele was born on May 5th, 1988 in Tottenham, a working-class town in northern London known best for its football club, Tottenham Hotspur, or Spurs, if you're in the know. Her mum, Penny Adkins, was only 18 when she was born, and when she was only 2, Adele's father upped and left for Wales. He would never be in the picture as Adele grew up. From the age of 4, Adele began to sing at every opportunity she would get. When the Spice Girls emerged, young Adele would become obsessed with the girl powerful group. In 2016, she would tell Vogue, "People always think I joke about this, but the Spice Girls blew up when I was 7. And seeing them coming from a humble background, there was hope in it. It was a really massive part of my life when the whole girl power thing happened." When she was 11, her mum and stepdad moved her to West Norwood in South London, which she would immortalise in her 2007 hit Hometown Glory. It was there that Adele would fall in love with contemporary R&B and the big classic voices that would shape her voice in the years to come. She would tell Yorkshire Live in 2008, "When I was a bit younger, I was just listening to the Spice Girls and Destiny's Child. I love R&B so much. I wanted to be the next Beyoncé, and I still do sometimes. But it's really hard to sing like that. All those notes are a nightmare. So I gave up on that one. The way I sing now came when I heard Etta James and Ella Fitzgerald. I was 15 or 16 and taught myself to sing by listening to the records. I'm obsessed with people's singing voices. I love trying to understand what they're feeling and listening out for the emotions." By the time she was 13, Adele had learned how to play the guitar, saxophone, and flute, which she decided to give up after she began smoking. As a teenager, she attended the Brit School, a performing and creative arts school in Croydon, South London. Notable alumni from the school include Amy Winehouse and Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland. And she attended classes alongside future stars Jessie J and Leona Lewis. There, Adele learned the ins and outs of the music industry, while honing her skills as a singer, songwriter, and musician. However, she originally set her sights on the label side of things, wanting to help sign artists as an A&R person. Adele graduated from the school in 2006 and began to think about university. She told Much Music's Sarah Taylor.
Yeah, me and my mum had an argument about university, and she wanted me to go like away up north in England, so I'd be independent and not like if I was at university in London, if I ran out of money or needed toilet paper, I'd go to her and just take it. Like, do you know what I mean? Whereas if I was away, I wouldn't do that. And I wanted to stay in London, and then she was like, we were shouting at each other. Then I ran upstairs and slammed my door, and I was like, "This is why I'm staying in London." And I wrote a song, and then I played it to her, and she was like, "All right, stay."
Adele wouldn't end up going to university. Instead, she got a job.
I didn't go to university. I got a record deal.
Right away.
She kept saying, "Go and get a job, girl." In the summer, in the holidays, I'd just lay on the sofa, just watch TV. And then she's like, "Go and get a job, go and get a job." So one day I went and came home, and I thought, "I think I got a record deal." So.
Because at that time you weren't sure that MySpace actually had record deals.
No, yeah.
A funny thing happened when Adele's friend uploaded some of her demos she recorded at school to a MySpace page. She received a call from Richard Russell, the owner of XL Recordings, who liked her retro modern soul pop sound. At first she thought it was a joke. She would tell Entertainment Weekly, "I'd never heard of XL." I took one of my friends with me to a meeting because I thought maybe it was some weirdo on the internet. XL was one of the biggest independent labels in the UK, scoring hits with the White Stripes, MIA, and The Prodigy. Adele, on the other hand, was only 18 and had 3 songs to her name. After hiring herself a manager, Jonathan Dickens, Adele signed with XL in the fall of 2006. Dickens persuaded her to cover a song by Bob Dylan, Make You Feel My Love, which would soon become her 4th song. The label set her up with a producer named Jim Abbas, who'd worked with indie acts such as Placebo, Kasabian, and Arctic Monkeys. In an interview with Creative Walden, Abbas would recall how he first met the singer.
I was actually working with a friend of hers, a guy called Jack Penny Adkins, and we needed a backing vocalist. And I wanted to get somebody that I knew the next day or the day after. And he said, I'm actually going to call a friend of mine. So I was kind of unsure about it. And she burst in about an hour later, a really funny girl, and she did the BVs in one take, and I really couldn't quite believe how incredible her voice was. And a few months later, I got a call saying, would I be interested in working with her as a producer? And so we worked together, and we did most of her first record, and every time was 9 out of 10, and there'll be some 10 out of 10s in there, and it was very easy just to do things and get great takes. And
at first, songs came to Adele slowly, and she found songwriting to be quite challenging. She would tell the German press, when I couldn't write a song for so long, I tried to make up things, and I tried to write fictional songs or write things about other people's situations. But I never could, because I don't believe what I'm singing. I can't be convincing or sincere when I don't feel what I'm singing. But then she met a boy and fell in love. And then eventually she learned the boy had been cheating on her, which all of a sudden became a source of inspiration for her. She would tell Rolling Stone, I went to the pub where he was and punched him in the face. I got thrown out, and as I was running away, the phrase chasing pavements came to me. I sang it into my phone and went home and got 3 chords together. And thus, her song Chasing Pavements was born. More songs came to her, with some help from additional songwriters such as Egg White and Sasha Scarbeck, and producer Mark Ronson, who had just won Grammys for his work on Amy Winehouse's Back to Black. Adele's first single, Hometown Glory, was first released in October 2007 as a limited 7-inch on a small label called Pacemaker. The song didn't do much until it was re-released the following year by XL, but the buzz was growing for Adele. As 2008 arrived, she became the youngest artist ever to win the BBC's Sound of 2008 award, which is selected by music critics and industry figures searching for the UK's most promising new music talent. She also took home the Critics' Choice Award at the Brits, which was given to the top rising star. But all of the attention didn't go to her head. She would tell NPR, I think it's quite ridiculous, to be honest. I still can't really get over it. I'm not really bothered by awards. My Brit Award is my toilet roll holder in my bathroom. Now that's what you call luxury, right? The first song to properly introduce Adele to the world was Chasing Pavements. Released just weeks before her debut album, Adele's tale about coping with her breakup became an international hit, reaching number 2 in the UK and number 21 on the Billboard Hot 100. What's funny is, in the US, a lot of Adele's fans thought she was chasing something other than pavements. She told Elle magazine,
In America, everyone thinks I'm saying chasing pavements, which is lols. And you also don't know what a pavement is. We don't use it for the same thing, but yeah. Chasing pavements, I slapped my boyfriend and was running down Tottenham Court Road in London to make sure I didn't get in trouble, and then no one was chasing after me, and I was like, you're chasing pavements, it's going nowhere.
Adele released her debut album, 19, on January 28th, 2008. She named it 19 because, well, that's how old she was when she recorded the album. It didn't take long for critics and fans to fixate on her age and how mature she sounded for someone who was only 19.
I wrote the album to get it off of my chest, to kind of get it out of my system. But it's no more than any other 19-year-old. It's just mine's magnified because it's a record that's been released around the world. I never really thought of that when I was writing it, and now I have to talk about the boy that I hate all the time. So,
oh really?
Yeah.
You still hate him?
We're friends, but I do hate him a little bit, yeah.
She called her music Heartbroken Soul for obvious reasons, and thanks to her gender and nationality, Adele was included in a British invasion of female singer-songwriters like Amy Winehouse, Lily Allen, Duffy, Kate Nash, Leona Lewis, and Estelle. But Adele was quick to embrace any associations with or comparisons to her contemporaries, even telling The Guardian that she wanted to assemble a supergroup and become the best band ever because they represented most women in the world. We're not afraid to speak our minds, she explained. And you don't need to be a doll with tanned legs, blonde hair, big boobs, and good lips. On her first trip to Canada in June 2008, Much More Music's Matt Wells asked Adele about the rise of the female singer-songwriter in the UK.
Kate Nash, Duffy, and now yourself.
And all three of you had this very fast kind of rise to success. What the hell is going on over there?
I don't know, it's like some factory, they're pumping us all out. I don't know what it is. I have no idea. It's very encouraging though. It's exciting. It's good. I don't know what it is though.
Something in the water.
I think it must be. It must be.
Do you drink bottled water or from the tap?
From the tap.
There it is.
So there's going to be like 60 million people, 60 million girls from London coming over soon, taking over Canada.
Adele would quickly carve a path for herself, but one comparison she couldn't avoid was to Amy Winehouse. At the time, Winehouse was becoming regular tabloid fodder for her erratic behaviour in public due to substance abuse, which, if you missed it, I go into full detail about in our last episode of Encore. I know, shameless plug, it's the May 16th episode, in case you're wondering. Anyway, Adele would tell Matt Wells that she wasn't offended, she was flattered to receive comparisons to Winehouse.
It's a compliment. I love Amy Winehouse. I don't know why they say that. I think if you kind of get a bit pissed off that you get compared to people, it's just really pathetic because I don't think that Duffy would get annoyed with that. It's probably just label, isn't it?
Exactly.
But you know, in terms of like critics' eyes and journalists and people that review your album or review your live shows or just write an introductory piece about you never come into your own until like your second or third album anyway.
Right.
So I think it's inevitable that you get compared to someone, and I'd much rather be compared to Amy Winehouse than someone I don't like. So
Like who?
Adele was quickly popping up everywhere on both sides of the pond. 19 was on the shortlist of nominees for the coveted Mercury Prize, which is awarded for Best Album released by a musical act from the United Kingdom or Ireland. Hometown Glory popped up all over TV, soundtracking huge dramatic scenes in countless TV shows like Grey's Anatomy, So You Think You Can Dance, Coronation Street, and 90210. But perhaps the greatest achievement, at least in Adele's eyes, was one of her heroes, Beyoncé, calling her the British singer, separating her from the rest of the pack. But it didn't end there with Beyoncé. Adele was offered an opening slot for Beyoncé's tour by her father, Matthew Knowles, which she turned down? She told Much More Music's Matt Wells.
Right.
And he said to me, "Oh, by the way, if you want to do Beyonce's tour, you can do it." And I was like, "It's like a million dates. I haven't got the stamina to do that many shows." Like,
Hold on. Let's just rewind.
Okay.
He said if you want Beyonce's tour, you can have it.
Yeah.
And you're like, no?
she does so many shows. I can't do that many shows. I'm not Beyonce. I can't do that many shows. So I said no. Also, the tour's only just starting. I think it's a bit tongue-in-cheek as well, because like mouthy. So he's like, "Oh, by the way," and then they walked out the room. But no, the tour's just starting. I need to do my second album.
True.
You know, and I can't do 300 shows. It's a lot of
you
shows.
could.
Nah. What, one album? I'd be like so bored of my songs.
I love it. You're just like, I could do the Beyonce tour, but I'm just not.
No.
I love it.
Anyway.
Adele was set to embark on her own North American tour, but ended up cancelling due to family issues, she said at the time. Turns out that was a lie. The next year, she confirmed to Nylon magazine that it was actually so she could spend some time with her new boyfriend, who was 10 years older than her, and what she considered her first real relationship. We refer to that period as my ELC, my early life crisis. Now I'm sober, I'm like, I can't believe I did that. It seems so ungrateful. I was drinking far too much, and that was kind of the basis of my relationship with this boy. I couldn't bear to be without him, so I was like, well, okay, I'll just cancel my stuff then. The relationship didn't last, but one good thing came out of it. She told Nylon, I got a second album out of it. So it was fine. Cancelling the tour cost Adele a big opportunity to break America, but when one door closed, another door opened. Although she didn't do the tour, Adele made the trip over to the US to be the musical guest on Saturday Night Live, alongside host Josh Brolin. This was at a time when the show still provided water cooler moments, and Adele's performance, combined with a surprise cameo by then vice presidential candidate Sarah Palin, remember her, was exactly that, generating huge numbers in the ratings. It's hard to think an SNL appearance could boost her career that much now, but it really did catapult Adele's profile in the US, lifting 19 up in the charts and helping it go gold at the time. And then a few months later came the Grammys. Chasing Pavements earned Adele her first Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance, beating out her former classmate Leona Lewis. It was also nominated for Song of the Year and Record of the Year. Even bigger than that, Adele also won Best New Artist over... whoa, the friggin' Jonas Brothers. No one was more surprised than Adele was. She described the experience to Much More Music.
I was so convinced that I wouldn't win it.
Who do you think was going to win?
I thought Duffy would win it, or the Jonas Brothers. I thought Duffy would win it with the album, but then I thought maybe Jonas Brothers will win it because First of all, they're nominated for a Grammy, like, which is kind of like, well, no, I'm a big fan of the Jonas Brothers.
I'm with you.
But like the fact that they're like, they're seen as just like this pop boy band that they've been nominated for, and I thought, actually, that's really great, maybe they'll win it. So I had no shoes on, I'd taken my shoes off, because I've got these huge heels, taken my shoes off, undone my belt, had chewing gum in my mouth, and like, they called my name, I was like, shit! I looked like a tramp. So I had no shoes on, I had chewing gum in my mouth, and my belt was undone, in my really nice dress that I had made. And then, like, I had no speech, all my label were like, oh, make a speech, because like the LA Times, the New York Times predicted that I'd win it, and then I was like, oh no, that means I'm not going to win it, like, it will jinx it, and it'll be the other way round. So I didn't even have a speech, so I was like crying, and then I was like, don't do a Kate Winslet, at the Golden Globes. Then I had to put it back and like go on about how much I love the Jonas Brothers and shout out a few people and stuff like that. But I can't describe the feeling. I don't even remember winning it. Like, I don't remember going up. Like, Snoop Dogg was next to me and U2 in front of me, and I was like, oh my god.
Adele would tour throughout the majority of 2009, playing shows across the world, but she also wasted no time getting started on her next album.
I want the second album to have a more of a distinctive sound than the first album. The first album intentionally doesn't sound like a body of work because it's my first album. I was like 18, 19 and don't know what kind of sound I want to have yet. I don't know what kind of woman I want to be yet. But now I know. So the second album, I'm listening to a lot of Alison Krauss at the moment. It's not going to be a country album because that's the biggest, fattest lie ever if I come out and start talking like,
well, that's why
howdy.
On
be a bit
Beyonce
weird.
tour, because you're going to be a country artist.
But yeah, so my music taste and how I play and how I sing has not changed, but grown up a lot and matured a lot. And without saying cheesy, I have grown up so much in the last couple of years.
Despite performing a duet of Lady Antebellum's Need You Now with Darius Rucker at a CMT special, Adele did not go country, but she did want to search for a sound that reflected more of a contemporary pop sound than the retro blue-eyed soul pop critics had classified her as. She spent a lot of time listening to all sorts of music, from hip-hop to country to pop, to try and measure what she wanted for her next album. Then she began to assemble a team of songwriters and producers that could help shape her second album. One of them was Ryan Tedder, who was best known as the singer of One Republic, but also a hit songwriter who co-penned Bleeding Love by Adele's classmate Leona Lewis, as well as Beyoncé's Halo. Also invited was Dan Wilson of Semisonic fame, you know the song Closing Time, and Paul Epworth, the UK's indie producer du jour, thanks to his work with hip acts like Block Party, Kate Nash, and Florence and the Machine. Feeling the raw sting of her recent breakup, Adele reached out to Paul Epworth in October 2009, and immediately they headed into the studio. She brought him a ballad she had begun writing a couple years ago about a boy which he felt needed to be stronger and more aggressive in its arrangement. She explained that her ex had told her she would lead a boring, lonely, rubbish life if she left him. The song was her way of saying, "Fuck you," to her ex, she would tell The Independent. So, with Epworth's help, they channeled the anger she felt from her recent split and used some guitar riffs he had previously written down. She would tell the Toronto Sun, "I was so upset. I was so angry. I was telling Paul, oh, Paul, let's write a ballad. That's all I ever do." And he was like, "Absolutely not. I want to write a fierce tune." As the two worked together, Adele began to feel her heart race, which became the beat of the song. The two of them came up with the verses and the chords of the song in under 15 minutes, with the rest only taking about 2 hours. They hardly touched the vocals and used what they recorded for the demo, because as he would tell the New York Times, Adele was going through something. She had had her heart broken and she was in pieces, and you could really hear that, her anger and her sadness. Sometimes I just don't think that you can recreate that or fake it. My hunch is that we captured something in a vocal performance that was going to be very hard to recreate. In the end, what they came up with was something called a gospel disco. Having recorded an album's worth of songs with Epworth, Tedder, and a handful of other producers, Adele decided to take the songs to Rick Rubin, the notorious yet celebrated producer who had helped shape the careers of Beastie Boys, Public Enemy, and Slayer, and recorded career-defining works by Red Hot Chili Peppers and Johnny Cash. For Adele to work with a veteran known for helping establish the contemporary rock of sound, metal, and rap music seemed like a far reach, but both parties were interested. Adele told Johnny Hockin,
Rick came to Saturday Night Live when I did that, so it was already I didn't really know it at the time, but afterwards it turns out it completely changed my life and my career, that TV show, and I was singing Chasing Pavements, and you can see in my eyes, because it's live obviously, when I spot Rick Rubin behind the camera, and I literally just shit myself in my face. And he's doing these, as his bob, but the way he feels music is just amazing. There's no other person that you look at and go, that guy's into music, do you know what I mean? And I met him and he was lovely. We met up a few times, accidentally and on purpose. And then at the Grammys in 2009 was when he was like, let's do it. And I was like, yeah, let's do it, Rick, it'll be great.
Adele headed to Rubin's Shangri-La studio in Malibu, California, where over 2 weeks they recorded her album, including a cover of The Cure's Love Song. There was only one problem. The songs didn't sound the way Adele had heard them in her head. They just weren't right. So she scrapped the majority of the recordings, including Rolling in the Deep, in which she wasn't able to recreate the rawness that was captured in her session with Paul Epworth. In the end, only 4 of the 11 songs recorded with Rubin made the album. Rubin would tell Rolling Stone that her decision caught him off guard, saying, "I was surprised because she had been so clear about wanting it to sound like it came from one place," he says. She wanted it to have a consistent band feel so that from track to track, it would sound like the same group of people in the same place, a unified album. I also understood she'd been listening to some of the demos for a long time, and when that familiarity builds, sometimes that trumps all. Rubin didn't seem to hold it against Adele for leaving so much of their work on the cutting room floor. Instead, he applauded her for bringing some originality and passion to pop music's lacking formulaic machine. He told the Associated Press, "She doesn't carry any of the baggage of many of today's pop stars, and it truly is about the music first, and her voice and her lyrics and bearing her soul with what she's saying. I would say what she makes is her art, and at no time does it feel like product. So much of pop music feels like product." With a mix of songs she had recorded with various producers, Adele's album was almost ready to go. After learning that the ex she had written all these songs about had become engaged, there was one more song for her to write. She called it Someone Like You, and wrote it to counter something as, quote, bitchy as Rolling in the Deep. She told Digital Spy, "When I was writing it, I was feeling pretty miserable and pretty lonely," which I guess kind of contradicts lead single Rolling in the Deep. Whereas that was about me saying, "I'm going to be fine without you." This is me on my knees, really. At first, her label wasn't fond of the sparse arrangement for the song. Again, the polar opposite of Rolling in the Deep, but Adele fought to keep it in order to free herself. And with that in the bag, she was ready to reveal this next era of hers to the public. On November 29th, 2010, Adele released Rolling in the Deep as the first single from her second album, and it immediately proved itself to be a juggernaut. Rolling Stone called it a breakup scorcher to beat all breakup scorchers, with Adele slinging bolts of regretful scorn amid gospel-tinged stomp and a gaggle of soul sister backup singers. The magazine also awarded it Best Single of 2011. Rolling in the Deep would dominate radio upon its release, and years later crossing over into multiple genres, which helped it reach number 1 in both Canada and the US. It paved the way for Adele's second album, which she would name 21, though originally she had planned on calling it Rolling in the Deep. In an interview with Black Book, she explained, "When I was doing interviews for the first album, people, especially the Americans, were like, 'Is your second album going to be called 21?' And I'd be like, 'F off, no. I've got more imagination than that.' As I was wrapping up this record, I was going to call it Rolling in the Deep, but that's a bit of a mouthful, and the Europeans would be totally baffled by it, because I'm baffled by it. I've changed and really grown into who I'm becoming so much since my first album, not just in my career, but also my personal life. Obviously in America, 21 is the legal age, but for me, it's like, that's it, you're on your own now. When you're 21, you're just out of being a teenager, and now you're a fully fledged adult. You've got to provide for yourself, and whatever you want, you've got to make it happen. 21 was a very obvious title, but it was the only thing that fitted. The album saw Adele documenting her growth from teenager to adult and laying out the heartbreak she'd experienced in that period. She explained the difference between the two relationships from her 2 albums to Aaliyah Jasmine.
19 was a breakup album.
Yeah.
21 is a breakup
Yeah.
album. So who was worse, 19 boyfriend or 21 boyfriend?
19, yeah. No, because 19, he was a cheater and stuff like that. And it was, obviously at the time, I was like, he's the one, you know. It's like, the world is ending. But it was still, when I look back on it, it was still a bit of a teenage relationship where it was sort of like you could wake up one morning and be like, yeah, I'm really not feeling this actually, and not be, a huge deal. Whereas with the guy on 21, we just fell out of love with each other, and that was more upsetting than having something to blame it on.
Right.
And we shared everything. We did everything together. It was all about us. It wasn't me or I or him. It was just
Released on January 24th, 2011, 21 would top virtually every country's album chart for a long, long time. Not only would it be the best-selling album of the year, it was also the best-selling album of 2012. To date, it has sold more than 31 million copies, proving that in the era of digital music, Adele reigns supreme. Not to be outdone by its sales figures, Adele cleaned up during award seasons. 21 took home Album of the Year at both the Brits and the Grammys. Rolling in the Deep also won Grammys for Record of the Year, Song of the Year, and Best Short Form Music Video. In total, 21 took home 7 Grammy Awards. And for the first time ever, Billboard awarded a woman Artist of the Year, Billboard 200 Album of the Year for 21, and the Billboard Hot 100 Song of the Year for Rolling in the Deep. As Stereo Gun would point out, Adele was in Michael Jackson territory, as 21 became the closest thing to a Thriller-level phenomenon that this century has yet produced. Since the release of Rolling in the Deep, Adele has, of course, become one of the biggest artists on this planet, alongside maybe only Taylor Swift and Beyoncé. Her ability to move between the boundaries of genre, appealing to fans of pop, country, adult contemporary, R&B, and even rock and hip-hop, has allowed her to achieve remarkable things, like sell out every single one of her 100,000 capacity Las Vegas residency shows within minutes. Rolling in the Deep has never really left our consciousness. Adele has released 2 massive albums since 21, but the song has become both her biggest crossover hit and her most identifiable achievement. Hell, Beyoncé admitted that Rolling in the Deep was an influence on her during the making of her album 4. Imagine influencing Beyoncé? But the influence goes even further. The OG Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin, covered the song for an album called Aretha Franklin Sings the Great Diva Classics, because in her words, Miss Adele is not one to be messed with, listening to those lyrics. And Linkin Park recorded a live cover of the song that was a minor hit for them in 2011. Yes, Adele has been new metalicized. And that's just the start. Everyone from Ariana and John Legend to Patti Smith and Celine Dion has sung it live. I bet Celine killed it. Most recently, the song helped Saskatchewan's Rebecca Strong win the $1 million prize on Canada's Got Talent. The 20-year-old from Black Lake, Denessiline First Nation, belted out her best version of Adele to wow the judges. How about that? Naturally, when you have a song as omnipresent and powerful as Rolling in the Deep, you have no control over it. Donald Trump used it while he was campaigning for presidency in 2016. Adele's team issued a statement denouncing his use of the song, saying Adele has not given permission for her music to be used for any political campaigning. And in true fashion, Trump kept playing it, well, because no matter how you feel, it's easy to understand why he wanted that song above others. It's persuasive and striking, the kind of song that commands your attention, for better or worse. I'm Miles Galloway, and that was the story of Adele's Rolling in the Deep.
Encore is an iHeartRadio Canada podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iHeartRadio or wherever you get your podcasts. Download the iHeartRadio app for more great podcasts just like these.